It's past midnight on a quiet English dual carriageway. Headlights slice through darkness as a Skoda Fabia races down the A46. Suddenly, an impact, metal on metal, sends the car hurtling off the road. In a flash, it splits in two and erupts into a fireball, flames lighting up the cold night. Moments earlier, 21-year-old Sakib Hussain frantically dialed 999. "We're being chased by guys in balaclavas. They're trying to ram us off the road. They're trying to kill me," he cried, voice shaking with terror. The line went dead as the Skoda slammed into a tree. By the time first responders arrive, the vehicle is a charred wreck. Two young men lie dead inside. What initially looks like a tragic accident is quickly exposed as something far more sinister. This fiery crash will unravel a tale of obsession, betrayal, and a TikTok star turned killer. You're watching The Silent Files, where real crimes reveal hidden truths. We want to say a big thank you to all our new subscribers. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button for more gripping true crime stories. The two who lost their lives in the inferno were Sakib Hussain and Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin, cousins and best friends from the town of Banbury in Oxfordshire. Both were just 21 years old, with warm personalities and bright futures ahead. Sakib was a much-loved young man, kind, compassionate, caring, and sensible, his family later said, shattered by the senseless way his life was taken. Hashim, often called Hash by those close to him, was equally cherished. He was a cheeky young man, always smiling, beautiful both on the inside and out, recalled his loved ones. He had a big heart and would do anything for anyone. In fact, on that tragic night, Hashim was simply helping his cousin and friend, giving Sakib a late-night ride as a favor. And this resulted in his death. His family mourned. The loss of these two young men sent shockwaves through their community. Thousands attended their joint funeral, and Banbury's residents united in grief, honoring Hashim and Sakib as the gems of our community and raising funds for a mosque in their memory. Both men were beloved sons, brothers, and friends, now forever remembered for their kindness and the awful fate they met on the A46. As investigators would soon learn, the fiery crash was no accident. It was the culmination of a scheme orchestrated by Mahek Bukhari and her mother, Ansreen Bukhari. Mahek was a rising social media star, a 22-year-old influencer from Stoke-on-Trent who had amassed over 120,000 followers on TikTok and tens of thousands more on Instagram. Online, she was known for glamorous fashion and beauty videos, often featuring her 46-year-old mother, Ansreen. In one clip, the trendy mother-daughter duo dances in sync with the caption, "Having an elite relationship with your mum." And indeed, Mahek and Ansreen seemed more like sisters than parent and child. Best friends who went to parties together in Mahek's newfound TikTok fame circuit. This social media stardom was a thrilling escape for Ansreen, who had led a quiet, traditional life as a housewife. Born in Pakistan and raised in the UK, Ansreen had married young and devoted herself to family. But accompanying Mahek to influencer events opened up a completely transformed life. Glamorous outings, VIP parties, a world away from her domestic routine. It was like two different lives, Ansreen later reflected, describing how she relished the excitement of her daughter's celebrity lifestyle. Yet behind the curated TikTok dances and smiling selfies, a dark secret was brewing. Ansreen had become entangled in a clandestine affair, one that Mahek would fiercely oppose, and ultimately one they would kill to keep buried. Around 3 years before the fatal crash, Ansreen Bukhari met a young man online, Sakib Hussain. He was just 18 at the time, But in their online flirtations, he lied that he was 27. Despite the age gap, Ansreen being in her mid-40s, the two began an intense relationship. They met in person for secret trysts at hotels in cities like Birmingham and London, and Sakib showered Ansreen with gifts, even sending presents to the home she shared with her unwitting husband and children. For Ansreen, who had once dreamed of being a flight attendant, the affair may have felt like a daring adventure beyond the confines of marriage. It carried on in secret for years, but by early 2022, Ansreen was growing fearful and guilt-ridden. She decided to end the illicit romance and cut ties with Sakib. Sakib, however, could not let go. The young man became increasingly desperate and obsessed with Ansreen, refusing to accept her goodbye. He began bombarding her with phone messages, dozens upon dozens of texts and WhatsApp messages that veered from pleading to threatening. If she wouldn't speak to him, he warned, he would make sure her family found out everything. Sakib had saved intimate photos and videos of their encounters, and he wasn't above using them as blackmail. "You're pissing me off by ignoring me. I will do something you're gonna regret," he wrote in one chilling message, calling himself a crazy bastard when Ansreen tried to cut contact. He threatened to send explicit images and sex tapes of Ansreen to her husband, Mahek's father, and to publicly expose their long-running affair. Panicked, Ansreen even told Sakib she'd repay him for all the money he had spent on her during their relationship. He tabulated it at around £3,000, and Ansreen agreed to pay that back if it would make him leave her alone. Under the weight of Sakib's escalating threats, Ansreen finally confided in the one person she trusted above all, her daughter, Mahek. The revelation infuriated Mahek Bukhari. She saw Sakib as a menace, a stalker tormenting her mother and jeopardizing their family's reputation. In the past, Sakib had even targeted Mahek online, at one point crudely superimposing Mahek's face onto a nude image in a social media post. Mahek's resentment toward him was intense. Upon learning of the blackmail, the young influencer's protective instincts went into overdrive. She wasn't about to let this man destroy her mother's marriage or tarnish their image. According to messages later uncovered by police, Mahek texted Ansreen with a firm solution. "I'll get him jumped by guys, and he won't know what day it is." In that moment, the doting daughter and social media star became a vigilante mastermind. Mahek was determined to silence Sakib Hussain at any cost. Mahek Bukhari sprang into action, enlisting help to carry out what prosecutors would call a planned, cold-blooded killing. First, she contacted a longtime friend, Rikan Karwan, a 27-year-old man from Leicester who knew his way around fast cars and, it seems, the wrong side of the law. Karwan agreed to help sort out the Sakib situation. Through him, Mahek assembled a ragtag crew of accomplices for a purported mission to scare off a blackmailer. They included Rais Jamal, 23, a friend of Karwan's who would later be revealed as the driver of one of the pursuit cars; Rais's 28-year-old relative, Amir Jamal; a 23-year-old friend, Sanaf Gula Mustafa; and Natasha Akhtar, 23, a young woman from Birmingham who was one of Mahek's own TikTok followers. Natasha offered up her Audi TT sports car to use in the plan. The Bukharis provided their own vehicle, a blue-seat Leon hatchback, as the second chase car. The stage was set for an ambush. Mahek and Ansreen told Sakib they would finally pay him the £3,000 that night. A meeting was arranged for the late hours of February 10, 2022, in the parking lot of a Tesco supermarket in Hamilton on the outskirts of Leicester. Sakib took the bait. He asked his loyal cousin Hashim to drive him there, not revealing the real reason except that he had to sort something out. Hashim, ever the helpful friend, agreed and brought his Skoda Fabia to ferry Sakib on the 90-minute journey from Banbury up to Leicester. Shortly after 1 a.m. on February 11th, the two cousins pulled in to the Tesco parking lot. It was nearly deserted at that hour, except for two cars lurking in the shadows. Inside those vehicles were Mahek, Ansreen, and their 6 co-defendants, clad in balaclavas and armed with at least one wheel brace, a heavy tire iron, and other weapons. They had arrived together and taken up positions, awaiting Sakib's arrival. Crucially, despite all their talk of repayment, the Bukharis hadn't brought a penny of cash. Their true intentions were malevolent. As the Skoda Fabia rolled in at 1:17 a.m., Sakib immediately sensed a trap. He spotted people in masks and the two vehicles idling. An instinct kicked in. Drive. Hashim hit the accelerator before even stopping, and the Fabia zoomed straight out of the car park in a panic. The ambush had failed, but Mahek's group was not about to let their prey escape. Within about 2 minutes, the Audi TT and Seat Leon roared out of the lot in pursuit. What followed was a harrowing high-speed chase through the night streets of Leicester and onto the A46 highway. Witnesses would later report seeing 3 cars racing at extraordinary speeds. CCTV cameras captured glimpses of the chase, the Skoda being closely tailed by the Audi and Seat in formation, like predators herding prey. Phone records show that during the pursuit, the defendants were urgently coordinating via calls and even calling the victims, perhaps trying to get them to stop their car. The chase barreled out of the city onto the open dual carriageway. The Audi TT, a rental car equipped with a live tracker, hit speeds up to 100 miles per hour as it closed in on the fleeing Skoda. In the Skoda, Hashim desperately tried to outrun them, pushing over 80 miles per hour, while Sakib in the passenger seat dialed 999 for help. Breathing hard, Sakib manages to get an emergency operator on the line. In the recorded call, later described in court, the 21-year-old's voice is cracking with panic. "There's cars following us. They have balaclavas on. They're trying to block us in, ram us off the road," he gasps. In the background, the engine roars. "These guys are trying to kill me," Sakib cries out. The operator tries to get his location, but before she can, there's a sudden metallic crash and the line goes silent. At that very moment, the chase reached its deadly conclusion. Blasting down the A46 near the village of 6 Hills, the Seat Leon, driven by Race Jamal, had pulled up alongside the Skoda. In a coordinated move, it swerved and rammed the Fabia from the rear at high speed. The impact was devastating. The Skoda lost control, veered into the central reservation, smashed through a barrier and into a tree. The force was so extreme that the car literally split in two, the engine torn from the chassis. Gasoline and sparks met shattered metal, and within moments, the wreckage burst into flames. Sakib Hussain and Hashim Ijazuddin likely died on impact from catastrophic injuries. Mercifully, they never felt the fire that consumed the car after the crash. The two pursuing cars braked hard. The Audi's tracker showed it decelerating from 100 to 62 miles per hour, right after the collision. Neither vehicle stopped to render aid. In fact, as the Skoda's remains lay burning, the Audi TT and Seat Leon circled back and cruised past the scene, observing the inferno from the opposite carriageway. Some of the perpetrators even got out briefly to inspect damage on their own cars, dents and scrapes from the ramming, before speeding away into the night. Not a single one of them called emergency services. Their mission was complete. The blackmailer was silenced. Now they scrambled to cover their tracks. In the pre-dawn hours, the group of 8 ditched their masks and weapons. CCTV later showed several of them walking on foot in Leicester's Gypsy Lane area, likely having abandoned the cars temporarily. Phones lit up with frantic calls among the co-conspirators as they coordinated their alibis. Mahek Bukhari texted instructions to her mother and friends. Stick to a story, admit to being at the scene, just the two of us, and claim the crash was an unrelated accident. Unbeknownst to them, Leicestershire police were already mobilizing a major investigation, one that would unravel their lies within hours. At approximately 1:35 a.m., just minutes after the crash, reports of a car engulfed in flames reached Leicestershire police. Firefighters arrived and extinguished the blaze, revealing the horrifying scene: 2 bodies in the disintegrated Skoda. Initially, officers weren't sure what they were dealing with: a freak accident, a hit and run? But then came the crucial clue. The burning wreck was quickly linked to the 999 call placed by Sakib moments before his death. Hearing that desperate recording, police realized this was no ordinary crash. It was a double murder on wheels. Detectives and collision experts descended on the scene through the early morning darkness. Even as they recovered Sakib's and Hashim's remains, they began scouring for evidence. Broken car parts hinted at a second vehicle involved, and Sakib's phone, recovered in the debris, contained a trove of information. By daylight, police publicly announced they were seeking suspects in what they now knew was a deliberate attack. Investigators rapidly pieced together the events of the night through painstaking detective work. They pulled CCTV footage from over 40 locations, tracing the journey of the involved vehicles from the Tesco meeting point onto the A46. Sure enough, security video from the Tesco supermarket in Hamilton confirmed the outline of the plan. Cameras showed the 2 suspect cars lying in wait, then the Skoda Fabia arriving briefly and taking off with the Audi in seat, peeling out in pursuit minutes later. Traffic cameras and private CCTV along the roads filled in the chase route, although the fatal collision itself occurred in a dark stretch not caught on video. The Audi TT had been a rental car, which worked to the police's advantage. Its built-in GPS tracker recorded the car's every move, including the extreme speeds and sudden braking during the chase. Forensic examination of the seat Leon, once located, revealed telltale damage: a crushed front end consistent with having rammed the back of the Skoda at high velocity. In the trunk of the Audi, officers found a wheel brace. In the seat, a bent metal bar left on the driver's seat. These were presumably the weapons the group carried to the ambush, now discarded evidence of their intent to do harm. Phone records were equally damning. Call logs and cell site data showed a flurry of communications among the conspirators before, during, and immediately after the attack. Investigators discovered that some of the suspects had hurriedly tried to dispose of their mobile phones after the crash, tossing them away to avoid being traced. But enough data had already been captured by cell towers to link their devices to the crime scenes. And critically, the police already knew who they were looking for, thanks to a stroke of investigative luck in the first hours. By 9 a.m. on February 11th, police had arrived at the Bukhari family home in Stoke-on-Trent. Acting on initial evidence and intelligence, officers went straight to Mahek and Ansreen. Bodycam footage from the arrest shows the mother and daughter appearing stunned, yet they quickly spun a story. Mahek claimed she and her mum had been out driving to Nottingham that night and stumbled upon the crash only after the fact. It was a flimsy lie that didn't match the evidence. Both women were taken into custody on suspicion of murder. Within days, their alleged accomplices also fell. Rekan Karwan and Rais Jamal were arrested on February 14th, and Amir Jamal and Sanaf Gula Mustafa in the weeks after. Natasha Akhtar had actually been stopped by police the morning of the crash when her distinctive Audi TT was spotted. She was arrested at the scene, giving a false account that she'd been nowhere near the incident. As the suspects were interrogated, many clung to the Nottingham alibi or feigned ignorance, but the evidence against them was rapidly solidifying. detectives uncovered text messages that laid bare the scheme, including Mahek's ominous promise to her mother to have Sakib jumped. Surveillance footage captured the group meeting up beforehand with faces covered. And one major piece of the puzzle remained: the motive. Initially, Ansreen Bukhari had downplayed her connection to the victims. In her first police interview, she described Sakib as an acquaintance or a one-time fling, but investigators sensed there was more to it. They obtained court orders to dig into Sakib's phone and cloud storage. What they found cracked the case wide open: explicit photos and videos documenting Ansreen and Sakib's years-long affair. The cloud data, retrieved from Sakib's iCloud and later from Ansreen's own phone, corroborated the blackmail narrative and established the Bukhari's clear motive to silence Sakib. Confronted with this, Ansreen finally admitted the relationship, confessing she had lied to protect her marriage. By the spring of 2022, police and prosecutors had built an extraordinarily detailed case. They had CCTV footage tracing the chase, forensic proof of car-on-car impact, the recorded 999 call capturing the horror in Sakib's voice, and digital trails of the conspiracy. Every defendant's role was supported by evidence, from the drivers who rammed the victims, to the planner and her mother who set the trap, to the associates who came armed and masked to intimidate. In total, 8 people were charged in connection with the double murder of Sakib Hussain and Hashim Ijazuddin. It was an almost unheard-of scenario: a posse led by a social media influencer and her mom, accused of orchestrating a deadly high-speed hit. As the case headed to court, the public struggled to comprehend how and why this had happened. The answers would emerge in a dramatic trial that gripped the nation. The first attempt to try the Bukharis and their co-defendants began in late 2022, but it collapsed due to a jury irregularity, forcing a retrial. Finally, in early 2023, the full story unfolded before a packed courtroom at Leicester Crown Court. The trial lasted 3 months, with prosecutors painting a chilling picture of love, obsession, extortion, and murder behind the TikTok facade. Day by day, jurors heard from dozens of witnesses and saw volumes of evidence. They listened to the heart-wrenching 999 call-in, which Sakib pleaded for help as assailants rammed his car, a recording so distressing that jurors bowed their heads as it played. They viewed CCTV clips of the chase and forensic diagrams of the crash. Police collision experts explained how the seat Leon's front-end damage lined up perfectly with the Skoda's rear, proving the ramming was intentional. The prosecution argued that Mahek and Ansreen Bukhari set a deadly trap for Sakib to stop him from exposing Ansreen's affair, luring him under false pretenses and then effectively sentencing him and Hashim to death. Key evidence came from the defendant's own communications. Investigators recovered a string of WhatsApp messages in which Sakib had threatened Ansreen. These were read aloud in court, showing his escalating desperation and anger. The jury saw the text where Mahek told her mother she'd have Sakib attacked by guys, a virtual blueprint of the plan she then put into action. When it was the defense's turn, Mahek Bukhari took the stand in an effort to explain her actions. The TikTok star, who once shared makeup tips, now wept as she recounted learning of her mother's affair. She admitted she was furious with Sakib. She called him pure nasty, basically narcissistic, and claimed he was blackmailing them and stalking her family. Mahek insisted that she never intended to kill anyone. She said the rendezvous was only meant to talk things out or scare Sakib into backing off, not to hurt him. Her mother Ansreen also testified, echoing that story. They portrayed the deadly chase as a tragic accident, claiming that Sakib's car simply lost control during a pursuit that got out of hand, rather than a deliberate ramming. The two women admitted they lied to police afterward, but only, they said, out of panic. Meanwhile, the other defendants each tried to minimize their roles. Some claimed they didn't truly know violence was on the agenda, that they thought they were just going to frighten Sakib a bit. One by one, however, their alibis and excuses fell apart under cross-examination and the weight of evidence. After 28 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict on August 4th, 2023. It was a dramatic climax to the trial. When the court clerk read the decisions, gasps and sobs echoed through the courtroom. Mahek Bukhari and her mother, Ansreen Bukhari, guilty on 2 counts of murder. Their accomplices Rekan Karwan and Rais Jamal, guilty of murder. As those words were spoken, Mahek broke down, sobbing openly, and Ansreen covered her face as tears fell. Both mother and daughter were now convicted murderers. The 3 younger defendants, Natasha Akhtar, Amir Jamal, and Sanaf Gula Mustafa, were found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter in the deaths of the 2 victims. The jury evidently decided that while those 3 participated in the unlawful chase, they may not have intended to kill. In the public gallery, Sakib's and Hashim's family members held portraits of the 2 young men and wept quietly. Justice at last, but at a terrible price. As the guilty verdicts were confirmed, Judge Timothy Spencer KC addressed the convicted, calling the murders callous and cold-blooded. He commended the police investigation as exemplary and warned the defendants to expect severe sentences. Indeed, a few weeks later, the judge would impose harsh punishments: life imprisonment for the Bukharis and the 2 men who rammed the car, meaning Mahek will serve a minimum of 31 years behind bars and Ansreen at least 26 years. Karwan and Rais Jamal also received life terms, over 26 years minimum for Karwan and over 36 years for Rais due to a prior conviction. The others were handed lengthy prison terms ranging from 11 to 14 years for manslaughter. As she was led away in handcuffs, the reality sank in for Mahek. The social media influencer who once flaunted designer clothes and luxury cars would now be spending the better part of her life in a prison cell. News of the verdict and the sordid details of the case made headlines across the UK and beyond. The press dubbed it the TikTok murder case, a story almost too surreal to believe. A young influencer, her mother, and a posse of friends turned highway killers. The public reaction was one of astonishment and outrage. Mahek Bukhari had portrayed a life of glamour and fun on social media, but beneath the filtered facade lay greed, deception, and lethal violence. Commentators pondered the toxic mix of family honor and internet fame that led a mother-daughter duo to murder. In communities like Banbury and Stoke-on-Trent, where the victims and perpetrators hailed from, people struggled to reconcile the events. Ansreen lost not only her freedom, but also the family she tried to protect. Her decades-long marriage could not withstand the revelations of infidelity and violence. Ansreen's husband quietly attended her sentencing, but has spoken little publicly. Reports suggest he's been left devastated and isolated by his wife and daughter's actions. Mahek's once adoring TikTok followers flooded her old videos with comments of disbelief and anger. We want to hear your comments below. Do you think social media fame played a role in how far things escalated? Who do you believe was truly pulling the strings, the mother or the daughter? And do you think justice was served? You have been watching The Silent Files. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more gripping true crime stories. Thanks for watching.